of love stories. This one is called Elvis Has Left the Building, right? Of course, the whole reference Graceland, right, and the reference to Elvis and pilgrimage, you know, the whole idea of pilgrimage. You go to Graceland in Memphis, in America, you go to Graceland basically to pay homage to the king, right? In the same way, I think, and the interesting thing is, I thought of the title Graceland, you know, or much earlier on, but Darul Ridwan, which is the Muslim name for, the Islamic name for Perak, actually means land of grace. That's completely so it's kind of meant to be like that. It's interesting about the directions the work has taken, okay, because my work's always been one autobiographical, right, and to a large part rooted in the events of the day, right, whether local or international, always looking for issues of how we fit. And I'm quite interested in history as well, right? So those elements have always been very strong and obvious in all my previous work. With these, I think they are very, very subtle in the sense that, of course, you're talking about your original place, where you came from in a sense. And as far as we're concerned, we come from Perak, right? But it's quite unadulterated. It's quite unconditional, I think, in a sense, with these works, because they're they're purely romantic. They are very much personal, made-up stories, imagined stories. But the transition, it's an interesting thing, because I think this work has also grown out of the landscape. The whole idea of the landscape format and all that has quite grown out of the project, the Sime Darby project I did last year, which is a huge mural painting of the history of Sime Darby, which in many ways mirrors the national history here in Malaysia. And out of that, I think that format of the landscape, that's where the interest was rekindled. The whole idea of this landscape format and looking at the lay of the land. I always laugh and say this is actually collaborative work with my father, right? Because it's very much a lot of his madness that makes his work, I think, quite intense. That's where they've grown out of. I'm interested in a few things with this exhibition that continues in the vein of, one is of course history painting, two, the autobiographical. Thirdly, I'm exploring how do you push the boundaries of painting, you know, do traditions just die, you know, something like traditional landscape painting, with photography, does it become redundant? How do you reinvent it? And I've chosen to make that reference to tradition through creating these boxes which make them like museum objects, that take them away from just being paintings. So the boxes basically almost encapsulate painting within this thing it's like antiquates it, you know, it makes it like a precious object from your past, you know, so it discusses that whole issue of the relevance of painting as well, right? And then the play of very much the anonymous signifiers. If you look at this, for example, Wei-Ling, of course, was my teacher when I was in Form 6. I used to go to his house on Sundays. And what I wanted to do, Wei-Ling's from Perak, and his father was a famous boxer. I wanted to imagine stories about the people of Perak, you know, and people who are close to me. This is called Road to Kampa. It also combines, you know, I've used Wei-Ling as a starting point, but it also refers to other stories. Like my father told me how when he was young, they used to cycle to Kampa to see Rose Chan, the famous entertainer, cabaret entertainer. And so I've just painted who I think Rose Chan would be. I mean, that's not her at all. So, but they're all very imagined stories. And this is me imagining my dad actually cycling to Kampa to see this cabaret show. It plays with a lot of those kind of very, very personal references. And the boxes, of course, because of the anonymous signifiers I was talking about, the boxes also have little definitions for, like with this one, I'm just telling the reader, the viewer, who Rose Chan is. So over here in orange, stuck on the box, is a little definition of Rose Chan. With this one, with the biawak, Elvis has left the building. With the monitor lizard, I've just played with the whole idea of, you always see carcasses of the monitor lizard dead on the roadside, and my uncles used to cook them actually. So you'd eat them. All the ladies would really be angry, but all the men would cook this stuff, which is apparently really good with whiskey. So you'd have, biawak curry. So I mean, a lot of the references, I think, are to things which we all have our own biawak stories. I told a few people about this story about my uncles cooking it, and they had different stories. That's a common thread that runs through the work, that it does kind of, spark some kind of resonance in everybody who views them. They have a version of the stories that I'm trying to play with. But fundamentally, the queen of this, the anchor of all this work is, of course, the sky and the skyline, right? So it does always return to the landscape. The stories, as far as this particular exhibition is concerned, I think are quite secondary to a celebration of the landscape, both specifically in the context of Perak, and of course, as an artist, to reinvent or to re-examine or to revisit landscape painting, which I think is fairly ignored or forgotten. Yeah.